Well, good morning, everybody. As Shelley said, my name's Adam. I'm a member here at First Lutheran. I know most of you know that, but just in case online somebody's joining us or in case you're visiting here to us today. I'm not a theologian. I'm not a lay minister. I'm not any of those things that you would expect most time to be up here, but I offered a while ago with Pastor to do some time if he needs somebody to fill in. And he was gone today, obviously, so asked me to jump in here today. I thought I would start today by talking about my own kind of Bible reading journey. Go ahead and go to the next slide here. We're going to be talking about good works here in a moment. Next slide, please. My Bible reading journey started several years ago. We were at a church, and the pastor wanted to start one of those read the year in a Bible things, and so he passed out the sheets and everything, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this a try. And I included a verse or a chapter from like the Old Testament, New Testament, a proverb, and a psalm. And it was supposed to help guide you through to read the whole Bible in a year. That failed miserably. I didn't make it anywhere close to getting the Bible read in a year. But I wanted to persevere, and so it worked much better for me to read a book of the New Testament and then go to the Old Testament, kind of flip-flop back and forth. I found for me, when I tried to do all of that, I couldn't keep track of things, and I had too many questions floating around all at the same time. New Testament reading is pretty straightforward. It usually leaves your heart feeling pretty good. Old Testament, not so much sometimes. The Old Testament can be hard to read, but it's worthwhile. It is definitely worthwhile. There is still value in the Old Testament. There is still value in God's Word from that time. I found that I learned a lot about fatherhood in reading the Old Testament, about God's way that he is benevolent. But sometimes he's strict. Sometimes you kind of have to learn the hard way. And all of those different kinds of things I found reassuring almost as I read the Old Testament. Sometimes I would switch and I would read a supplement of some kind. Or something would strike me, and so I would jump and I'm like, I'm going to research that more. And when I got to Revelation, I knew I'm not going to be able to figure this one out on my own. So I borrowed a supplement from a pastor, and now kind of had wish I would have gotten a supplement from my supplement, because I still couldn't figure out half of what was going on there. But that's okay. I persevered through, and I read it, and 5 or 6 years later, I got through the whole thing. And so I was really proud of that. Not just Revelation, the whole Bible, but and I was really proud of that. And so today, we're going to take a look at the book of James. Next slide, please. If you're unfamiliar with the book of James, it's not a very long book, a New Testament book, and I find it to be a very practical book. It's actually one of my favorites. It's almost like a step-by-step plan. Like if you're familiar with the Gospels, now how do I put this into practice? How do I now take that love, that commitment, that faith, and now how do I kind of bring that to others? How do I kind of prove it in a way? It is direct at times, but not as much so as some of Paul's teachings. Sometimes people read the Gospels and they jump right into Paul's teaching of Romans and Ephesians and such. And sometimes Paul kind of has a slap in the face, and you read that and you're like, whoa. And James is just a little bit kinder in that respect, overall, just as you read at surface level. I was talking to Jill as we were going through this, and I said, it's kind of like a Proverbs of the New Testament. And next slide, please. Charles Swindoll, if you're familiar with that, name's the pastor and writer, says the book of James looks a bit like the Old Testament book of Proverbs dressed up in New Testament clothes. I was like, I felt pretty good about that. So here this theologian's thinking the same thing I am, and but it's true. It absolutely is true. Next slide, please. And so I thought first we'd take a few minutes and just kind of discuss who James was and what his impact was on the New Testament. This course is an artist rendering. We have no idea what James actually looked like, but I thought that was an appropriate one. Next slide, please. Well, most of the time, it doesn't say specifically, but we think we've done enough research to think that James was actually, or is that James, the half-brother of Jesus, is the author of this epistle. And because we don't really know, but that's through research and stuff. James at first wasn't so sure about his half-brother. He wasn't so sure that this was, he was a devout Jew. And to say that here his half-brothers come to be our salvation, he's like, until he witnessed the resurrection himself. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine being someone who was actually there and actually witnessed this happen? It's just incredible. He went on to be a leader of the church in Jerusalem. The epistle was written, the people who researched this think, was written around 45 to 48 AD. James was actually killed later in the 60s AD, and I'm not going to go through all of the background with all of that. But that's kind of when we believe it was written. So if you followed it, year by year, Jesus died, in theory, in year 33, because he lived to be 33. So this is a pretty close. I mean, this is like remembering exactly what happened and writing it down. Could quite possibly be the first book of the New Testament. And the earliest manuscripts go back to the 3rd century, which of course is a long time ago now, but is really pretty close to that 45. Next slide, please. We're going to focus on verse 17. And I have two different kind of translations or versions of this. From the NIV, it says, in the same way, faith by itself is not accomplished if it is not accomplished by action, is dead. Oftentimes translated thus, also by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. But, not everybody was as fond of the book of James as I am. Next slide, please. Namely one, Martin Luther. And I found that out, and I'm like, oh, Marty, what are you doing to me? I have such respect for you. But he didn't really think so highly of this book. Next slide, please. If you haven't read a lot about Martin Luther or some of his writings, he's to the point. He says, therefore, St. James's epistle is really an epistle of straw compared to these others, for it has nothing of nature of the gospel about it. Gracious, how do you really, an epistle of straw. What do we use straw for? Bedding, yeah. We use it to help soak up other stuff, and then we scoop it out of the barn, right? That's what straw is used for. Now we use it for decor and stuff, but as its original, that's what it was. The oats were taken off. That was the good part, and the straw was just the leftover. And if that's not enough, next slide, please. He says we should throw the epistle of James out of this school, Wittenberg, for it doesn't amount to much. It contains not a syllable about Christ. Not once does it mention Christ except at the beginning. I maintain that some Jew wrote it who probably heard about Christian people but never encountered any. Since he heard that Christians place great weight on faith in Christ, he thought, wait a moment, I'll oppose them and urge works alone. This he did. Whew. That's a pretty bold statement to think that not a word about it. And I thought about that. It's not a word about Christ in it other than the beginning. And I kind of thought, well, James was a half-brother. Who wants to talk about their half-brother in their epistle? I'm just, of course, being silly with that. But in a way, can you imagine poor James going to a dinner party at that time? What's going on with you, James? Oh, how's your brother Jesus? Well, he's coming to save the world or something. I don't know. Next slide, please. And there are verses that really justify him. It says, for we maintain that a person is justified by faith apart from the works of the law. John says, very truly I tell you, these are the words of Jesus. Whoever hears my word and believes him who sent me has eternal life and will not be judged, but has crossed over from death to life. It just says believe. It doesn't say you have to do anything other than have faith. In Ephesians, Paul says, "For it is by grace you have been saved through faith. And this is not from yourselves, it is a gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast." So why do we need the works? Why? I mean, the Bible very clearly tells us that we don't. Next slide, please. So we're back to this good works. Maybe it would help if we took a moment to define maybe what good works are, or at least one author's. Next slide, please. Dr. Paul Elliott says, "The biblical definition of good works is not merely good deeds," although I found some other readings that would perhaps not agree with that. But biblical good works encompass every aspect of our thinking and conduct before God. The Christian's good works are rooted in Christ and have cosmic purposes that God ordained before the world began. Cosmic purposes. Can you imagine that the things that you do every day have cosmic purposes? And perhaps not everything. Some things are just part of our daily routine. But I think some things that we do, the encounters we have, the people we talk to, could have cosmic purposes. They're rooted in Christ. Next slide, please. He goes on to say, every Christian needs to remember a vital fact about good works. Christ is the root. Good works are the fruit. This is the proper order. So, Christ is the root. Good works are the fruit. And what's between? We are. We are in between. We are the vessel. Christ has rooted in him. The fruits are good works, but we have to do them. They don't just happen by accident. Those good works have to come through us. Next slide, please. This one's a little smaller, so I'll help and read this one as well. I found this, it just happened to come across my Facebook feed in the last couple weeks as I was preparing for this. Lolly's East Side is a restaurant in Lamar's, which is actually my hometown. It says here, from their site, a gentleman comes in yesterday, asks for the manager. He said he is hungry and has no money. No questions asked. He said he will eat anything. A high-piled plate of food comes out along with the takeout box. With lots of bones left on his plate, the man and the box are gone in short time. Should be set on food for today. Reminds me of the story of Mike Mullally, who was the owner, when he caught some people eating out of the dumpster. He said, "Get in here," and sat them down and served them some fresh food. No questions asked, just eat. That, my friends, is an example of good works. Not to ask, not to question, not to say, well, go get a job. None of that stuff. Just feed them. And when they have a full belly, maybe we can sit down and have a conversation. But until then, they're not going to listen. We talk about this a lot at school. How do we expect kids to learn when they come to school hungry? If they don't have a good meal. Maybe they did eat, but maybe it was just a bunch of garbage kind of stuff, you know? They don't have quality food at home. How are they supposed to learn? Until your needs are met, it's hard to do these things. And that's part of, I think, our job, is to find ways to meet these people's needs. As I was reading this and thinking about this and how I was going to tie this in, I thought about my grandpa Kleiehauer. His name was Gerhard Otto Kleiehauer. How German is that, you know? But they called him Adi. My grandma, his wife, passed away in 1989 already of cancer. But her name is Marilyn. Her mom, Lucille, survived her by many more years. And so after Lucille, my great-grandma, started to get a little older, a little more frail, she was still in her home, but she needed a lot of help. And my grandpa continued to help. He continued to take her to get her hair done every Friday morning. And then after she got that done, they would go to Lolly's and they would have lunch. And I remember so many people would come up to Grandpa and they would say, you know, I just think it's so wonderful that you're continuing to care for her. He just kind of shrugged. Of course I do. What else would I do? That's just what you do. It was somebody he loved, it was a commitment he made, and he followed it through. Again, didn't need for anybody to tell him to. He didn't want anything in return. Was just a wonderful person. Next slide, please. Warren Wiersbe is another writer who's wrote a book about just about every book of the Bible. He says, many people have mistaken idea that hearing a good sermon or Bible study is what makes them grow and get God's blessing. It is not the hearing, but the doing that brings the blessing. The Bible says, go out and make disciples. Go out and continue the word. Go out and do something. Not just sit and absorb. But that's hard sometimes, isn't it? We're passionate people, especially about our churches and things. Social media is a place where we can easily say whatever we want and think it's just okay. Things that we would say to people that if they were sitting right in front of us, we wouldn't say that. And yet, it kind of comes out. It is not the hearing, but the doing that brings the blessing. Next slide, please. He goes on to say, the way we behave toward people indicates that the way we behave toward people indicates what we really believe about God. We cannot and dare not separate human relationships from divine fellowship. And he quotes 1 John, whoever claims to love God yet hates a brother or sister is a liar. Whoever does not love their brother and sister whom they have seen cannot love God who they have not seen. Can you really call yourself a follower of God if what you do does not resemble that? And we're not looking at perfection here, folks. I'm not perfect by any means. I've said things I shouldn't have. I've done things I shouldn't have. Will continue probably to do things that I shouldn't because it's our human nature. We are broken people striving to find that perfect faith, find that perfect relationship. Next slide, please. Wiersbe also says, we only believe as much of the Bible as we practice. We know a lot about practicing in the music world, We often say, you've probably heard the line, practice makes perfect. And many of us say, no, because you can practice something wrong every day and it's still wrong. Perfect practice makes perfect. If you don't practice something the right way over and over, it's going to be wrong. I can play a musical line, sing a musical line with a wrong note. I can sing it that way every day. I can sing it hours over hours, and it's still wrong. And until I fix that, until I take the time to realize where something is wrong and fix it and diagnose it, then it's better. Then I can perform it. Next slide, please. So is there anywhere in the Bible that says that our works and our deeds, other than James' course, do matter? Well, here's a line that might help. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash. And that's an allegory for life. If we don't have a good foundation in Christ, we're going to fall. I have many colleagues that I communicate with all the time in the music world. And there are a number of them who I know aren't Christian. And they kind of sit there and go, I just don't know. I can figure this out. Da-da-da-da-da. And sometimes I try to communicate to them. And sometimes I know that they're not ready to hear it. But if you don't have that foundation, then it's going to fall. That verse reminded me of a song. Feel free to sing along if you know it. My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly lean on Jesus' name. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. Next slide, please. And actually, my last slide. I just want to leave you with a quote by John Wesley, who was actually a leader in the Methodist Church, but don't hold that against me in the Lutheran Church today. He says, "Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as you ever can." Thanks for letting me talk here today, everybody. God bless.